Season 1, Episode 17, The Randal Report. And today we are doing It's News to Me, Episode 2.
That's news to me too.
Oh.
It's
the first and last time I'll ever be able to say that.
Well, yes, this is true. Yes. Anyway, welcome to That's News to Me Too, and where Mel and I, in the space of just 10 minutes per subject, scrutinise, drill down. It's a load of bollocks, isn't it?
Yes.
Just to have our opinion on the order of the day. So I thought the first topic up today for our pinpointed scrutiny is going to be what rules, how do we basically deal with trans sports people wanting to compete
Start the timer.
in competitive sport, and how do we resolve this issue? So you've got 10 minutes, and I've got a little timer here, so be warned, there will be an alarm at the end of it. Here we go. So what do you reckon?
We shouldn't allow trans athletes to compete. Full stop. Finish.
You can't say that.
You can finish the timer now.
Well, no. Obviously, it's a subject that's a bit.
We resolved it.
Well, we haven't really resolved it.
Yeah,
Why shouldn't they be allowed to compete in sport?
Because there's this incredible genetic advantage, specifically when it's trans women competing in women's sports.
So, you mean trans men? What comes?
Trans women.
Right, okay. I just want to make sure the terminology is right. Well, I think that's sort of a bit a little bit. I can understand.
Simon, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
If you
Shouldn't it still compete in their own sport? What their original assignment?
This is not my point.
Right.
If you were to claim you were a trans woman tomorrow and decided to go and compete amateur boxing, and you came up against a woman of a similar physique to you.
Yes.
Now, who's going to win that fight? You or the biological woman who's standing opposite you, who might have a similar frame, similar weight? Who's winning that fight?
Well, I don't know. To be fair, if she's a big old brute.
No. Similar frame, similar size.
Oh yeah, well she might be a better boxer. For similar size and similar weight.
You think that you would lose? That's all I'm asking you. Are you losing that fight? If you tell me yes, then we'll continue the conversation.
That I'm losing that fight as a trans.
No,
person.
no. You become a trans woman tomorrow.
So I turn into a woman.
Yeah.
So you're
by all intents and purposes, you are now a woman.
Yes.
Same frame, still same physical attributes.
Yes. Just no knob.
No, you haven't necessarily gone that far.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to have gone to that
so
point.
What there's a cut-off line.
There is no cut-off line.
What?
This is what you need to be very careful with.
Okay, this is interesting. So what classes a trans woman? What stage of the process can you actually then say you're trans?
As soon as you say the phrase.
Seriously?
Seriously.
So you could have all the
but if you claim that you are a woman, you are a woman, and that's that.
Oh, that's a bit sort of.
So again, in a boxing match.
Oh, that's awkward.
But in a boxing match, who's winning? You as a trans woman, or a biological woman?
Well.
Okay, let me answer this.
Yes.
If I turn into,
I've got an advantage.
If I decide I'm a woman tomorrow and I face up to a woman, similar height, similar stature, I'm pretty certain I'm winning.
Well, I think that's a bit unfair. I mean,
No,
I've come across some women in my time
It's not
that,
unfair.
quite frankly, have scared me witless.
It's not
if
unfair
they thumped me.
because I have a physiological advantage over women, and that's it. Bone density, muscle response, muscle size,
yes,
grip strength,
yes. Certain
speed,
facets of, and there's other facets, of course, where females
testosterone
have
levels.
Women tend to have greater flexibility. I think, don't they, than men?
Yeah, but they still get knocked out, wouldn't they? In a
No,
boxing match.
I agree with you. I think there are distinct scientific advantages. You're absolutely right.
If we base it on athletics,
yeah, don't take too many balls.
999 times out of 1,000, a man is going to win that race because they're faster and stronger. Maybe if you go to gymnastics, it might be different.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Because a woman has attributes which are more advantageous to.
I'm kind of playing a bit.
Don't though.
Devil's advocate.
No, but you should,
because I agree that obviously they should be able to compete in sport, but yes. I also agree.
But within their own category,
there is going to be issues about what qualifies. But then,
Leah Thomas.
What about in the days when you had your Russian shot putters that were
on steroids?
Well, exactly. There's all cheating going on all over the place. So.
But it wasn't a man pretending to be a woman. Sorry, not pretending. It wasn't a trans. It wasn't a trans woman competing in a woman's sport. It was a woman or a man hopped up on the most intense drugs that the Russian Federation could possibly try to create a sporting advantage, and by God, it worked. You know, in terms of a pharmaceutical sort of prowess, Russia were very good at sort of creating supermen and superwomen that could outcompete, you know, even the most well trained sportsmen, you know. But this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about biological difference and biological advantage. Yes. Leah Thomas, the trans woman, who is demolishing women in the pool by lengths.
And this
it's not even close. It's not even close.
This is a trans athlete.
Yes. There was another UFC fighter. Her name was Fox. Who entered the ring, who entered the cage, and essentially for one fight that she had, she caved the opponent's skull in. This is a biological man.
Okay.
This is a biological man.
Well,
you know.
What do we? The question is then, while we've got a moment or two left before that alarm knocks us out, how do we resolve it then fairly? That we give, therefore, fairness to all parties, because everybody, you know, the trans people have a right to express themselves in sport. How do we therefore create something that is fair to all concerned without seemingly disadvantaging one or another?
Well, you don't, because you have to be
their own.
You have to be pragmatic about these things
and create their own sort of.
Well, we don't have to create anything. If they want to have a sporting event, then they can create it.
But obviously,
that community can create it for themselves.
We should assist in it though, because it's like women's football has taken a long time to get off the ground. I mean, look at the success.
And it's still crap.
Well, it's difficult for me because I don't really like men's football.
But that's fine.
But
I bet you that 99.9% of people would still rather watch men's football than women's football. You can't change that. Because men are stronger, faster, more intense, it just looks better. It's more competitive. You can't get away from that.
He's going to be popular, isn't he?
But it's different when you get to things like gymnastics, swimming, certain winter events,
Yes.
you know, where women will definitely match or outcompete a man. But but for the most part, for most sporting sort of activities,
There's an inherent scientific, physiological advantage.
And the trans community, by the way, is so small. It's such a small section of the community that you then can't pander to such a small element of the community and then offer them their own Olympics. We're talking about 0.01%, if that, of the population.
Yes, yes.
So therefore, do you then provide an entire subsection?
It's a massive question, isn't it? Because as we get into...
Who else are you going to give Olympics to?
Hello. Where does it begin and where does it end? You know, I'm all for equal rights.
How many trans men compete in men's events?
I don't know.
Not many, if any, because it wouldn't make any sense because you'd lose all the time.
Well, there you go. They could take up darts. Doesn't really matter in darts.
Doesn't matter at all.
No. Couldn't do Formula 1, of course.
See, why not? I've always wondered that. Why can't women be?
Well, there has been the odd racing driver, but you know, it is all about, as you know, there's a lot of great racing drivers that can't do Formula 1 just by stature. There you go. Topic for another day, and we've got to move on, I'm afraid, from that subject. So,
topic two.
Topic two. Let's have a look what topic two was then, shall we? Provided by one of our sponsors. Topic two.
We have a sponsor.
Yes, we do.
What?
Yes. I'm not jest, of course.
Oh.
Sauce. We are.
we are our own sponsor.
You mentioned in the last this last week that for one particular topic we'd had 6,000 downloads.
Yeah.
And there you go. You see, so that's more than the 3 listeners that we thought. Or did the same 3 listeners to it in disbelief have to listen to it
2,000 times?
2,000 times apiece. Anyway, subject number 2: is the British worker the laziest in the world? So I'll just do with the preamble. Otherwise, it'll cut into the 10 minutes. Charlie Mullins, I saw him on television yesterday, very difficult to look at. He's retired now.
Get on with it.
And sold Pimlico Plumbing.
That guy.
Little advert. Intimating, and he was agreeing with Liz Truss's comment that was written in a book 12 years ago, that the British workers are the laziest in the world. To which, of course, Truss has refuted that she wrote it, that this particular chapter was written by her co-author, Dominic RAAB. Presumably not because she was too bone idle to write it herself. So there you go. Are the British workers lazy? Well, and you'll start for 10 minutes. Starts now. So.
Yes.
Oh, he kills me, mate. He fucking kills me. Yeah, I spend hours researching this shit. And he just goes, yes.
Is it that unfair to suggest that?
Mm.
You know, essentially...
Well, let me give you a little statistic. Last year, for example, there were some 3.8 million working hours completed by the people of this country that were unpaid, either overtime or other. 3.8 or 3.9 million hours. So why can Liz Truss get off on saying, one thing of the retail workers that are at it until 7 o'clock every flaming night and have to go in on a Sunday.
The question is who are
British workers
pre-COVID, pre-Brexit? What percentage of the population?
She wrote this 12 years ago.
Okay, fine.
10 years.
That's fine. But what percentage of the population were foreign migrants doing menial, low-paid jobs,
Well,
the jobs that the British public were really not keen on doing.
Well, British workers include all
No.
manner of people from all over the world that have migrated here over decades and decades, and indeed generations. So,
I don't think it was that. I don't think it was that nuanced.
Well, I think British workers are the laziest in the world.
In my opinion, she was focusing more on
how can she say
the indigenous British population as opposed to European migrants from Asia and such countries.
People who are British, they're all British, that work really hard. When you go to your corner shop that's open from one end of the day to the other, they're British. They're British Asians, but they're British, and they work and work and work to look after people like us who run out of a pint of milk at 7 o'clock at night. I don't think
she means that.
Well, how can she be so naughty as to just naughty? That's a good one, isn't it? Naughty. How could she be so? I mean, this is 10 and 12 years ago.
I think it was a nuanced
to endorse something.
She didn't mean.
If she didn't write it, she endorsed it.
She didn't mean Eastern Europeans. She didn't mean Asians.
Yeah.
Of all manners.
Well,
I'm making a presumption based on what I read. I think she meant the indigenous British population, not European migrants.
What do you think she meant when she said that?
And she's not. I mean,
Nicola Sturgeon was, should be ignored. What else did she say about her? Something.
I don't think she's necessarily potentially. It was said badly, but I don't think the intention was wrong. I mean, if you're going to
see where I'm coming from.
I do.
It's like she's saying something. And again, she seems to engage her mouth, and obviously 10, 12 years ago, she engaged it with the pen, or she approved of what was being written because she was the co-author. On what basis can she say such a thing? Like I don't say Britain has been a great success in the world in the last couple of hundred years or so. Could we have done that off the back of being bone idle?
There are a lot of British citizens that would refuse to do certain jobs because they believe it's below them.
Right. Well, that might be.
That foreign workers have stepped in to the breach to do exactly those jobs, which a section of the British public wouldn't want to do, and felt that, in terms of benefits available, the offset to that wouldn't be worth going to a job.
It's not the people's fault for being lazy. It's the system's fault for not creating a situation where I would argue that the vast majority of people would sooner have that routine and go to work to earn their money, but not to be worse off. So that's not the people being lazy.
It's a bit of people being lazy. Yeah. There's an element of that, surely.
Well, I don't necessarily think so. If the system's stacked, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are habitually lazy people everywhere in the world. Let's be about right. It's
No, the question is: did she say British people are lazy or all British people are lazy?
Well,
because if she says British people,
the British worker.
But then she's
are
not wrong.
amongst the laziest in the world.
Well, then she's not necessarily wrong, then is she?
Well,
because some of the British public probably are some of the laziest.
Yeah, but that's only some. But she generalised.
She didn't, though, did she?
Well, she did.
She didn't say.
Oh, she was doing a big box, little box.
But she didn't say all British workers are.
Well, she implied it.
No, she didn't. She said the British worker. Oh. Not all British workers are.
Well, which British worker then?
Well, that's
if she's not prepared to say all, and she's only prepared to say some, so she needs to point out.
This is literally a story of a teacup.
Liz, come on.
So, what exactly did you mean? That's the point. Which British workers?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a. You can't go around. She does this.
But so she's not that stupid, then, is she? Because she's actually said they're British worker, and so it could mean some of them or it could mean all of them. So what she said is actually quite smart, because she's managed to dig herself out of what could have been a really horrific hole. Because it's everyone to surmise what it is that she means.
Well, yeah. The thing is, she's about to win the leadership challenge, which just actually goes to prove while she's been digging herself out of the small holes, she's been creating one giant one, which she's actually choosing to jump into.
That's another topic altogether, isn't it? So what's your view then?
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that's bang out of order. I mean, I think that I don't disagree with you. There are some elements of society and the British worker that just by the systems that they work in are almost encouraged to be lazy. You know, and I don't want to go. Well, I don't know how they work, but I do know how some local authorities work, and they go out and do a particular job, and they've got to, I know somebody who worked on the railway said exactly the same thing. Oh no, we've got to spin this job out for the entire day. You know, it's like, oh, so it's beyond you then to sort of get on with the job at a normal pace, and then maybe do another job. You know, that's the thing. When I was a young man, I had 2 jobs. I used to work like crazy in the morning because I was on piecework and what have you, and get done, which meant the day's work was done because there was, you know, and then I could take in outdoor work in the afternoon.
What was the outdoor work?
Oh, it was just something like, it was for a clothing factory, so it was what they call draw through, pulling the nylon out of the trimmings that are knitted for garments.
Outside?
And you could do that at home on your ironing board, you know, as long as your fingers were covered in plasters. Otherwise, your fingers would be on the floor. And you know, so but it seemed to me that you know, they could go and then start another job. But so I think there's certain stratas in employment that you're encouraged by the system that's in place to not be welcome. It's like the cleaners that come to this building. I don't ever see anybody moving with any speed or any gusto, any intent. Do you know what I mean?
That's right.
So when you go down,
why don't you go down and tell them to work a little bit faster?
Well, I did get one the sack because I photographed him going to sleep in the back of his motor. Well, I mean, we're paying to have the cleaning. I'm not paying for him to have a kip in the back of his motor.
So you got him the sack?
Well, I mean, I didn't.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Indirectly.
Simon Randal.
Well, it wasn't. We were paying. I mean, just taking the effing piss. But there's somebody out there that wants the job, is willing to do a good job. You know, it's the same. I'm sure you've driven down the motorway and driven in the where one lane or 2 lanes are cordoned off for about 5 miles. You know, for road motorway maintenance, and all you see is bollards, and you don't see a soul of a human being actually doing anything.
Well, that's what you get for driving down the motorway at 2 in the morning.
Well, I mean 2 in the morning.
When do you mean?
During the day. Well, there you go. And thus ends Topic 2. I don't think we really got anywhere with that, do you?
Well,
with that one. I think we're not really in agreement. You think they're a bunch of lazy bastards, and I think some of them are lazy bastards.
I never said all.
And Liz Truss should have been more exact on whom.
What she meant, yeah. That's for sure.
She meant, and what she meant. Rather than just simply blaming Dominic Raab for that chapter, which she must have endorsed. So topic number 3, for our final 10-minute slot. So having been roasted in the sunshine of the great British summer, and obviously for me personally in France last week, with wildfires raging, crop failure and drought conditions, hosepipe bans, and to boot, should Britain, and elsewhere for that matter, be doubling down on our efforts to reduce carbon emissions and You know, is this now going to this current drought, current situation this summer, and how that will actually tack into inflation, food inflation going forward? Do you think that now might add as a spur to ever faster change? Because it looks pretty irrefutable. Now, we've had a new record here of 41 degrees. What do you reckon? What do you reckon? 10 minutes.
Climate change is not man-made. And this is just an unusual period, as we've had before. I believe 2006.
But not 41 degrees.
Not 41 degrees. It's still pretty hot.
No, 1976.
I wasn't alive.
Not 41 degrees. About 36, 35.
Yeah, okay.
So you don't think climate change is
then
real?
I also went to Morocco in 98 and we had 46 degrees.
Yeah, well, that's not unusual in Morocco. And I dare to say now Morocco is probably sitting at about 49.
Is it?
I think they've had really hot conditions. I mean, it certainly broke records in France, and it's broken records all over Europe. It's broken records here. Seemingly broken records in the States. So, is it not time that we it seems as though there's, well, obviously, you're no more convinced today than you were a fortnight.
Maybe the sun's just a little bit more active than it usually is.
But is that not a sort of chancy thing to position to adopt? Oh, sort of hope springs eternal. Well, let's hope it's not that. Could be that. Could be just a sort of...
Well, we've reduced our carbon emissions by a significant amount over the past few years.
I believe Britain has reduced their carbon emissions by 42%.
So then explain why...
1990s, I think. Yeah, so...
Yeah, so then explain why the environment is heating.
Because there's lots of other countries in the world that have been still puthering it out like no tomorrow. I mean, I saw an interesting... we'll take it from this premise. If SUVs were a country, then it would be the 5th largest emitter of greenhouse gases on the planet.
That's nonsense.
It's not.
Absolute nonsense.
It's a statistic that not just a read. It's been
by whom and where?
Oh, we're going to get into that one. Ask Liz Truss. She might know.
That's a load of crap. That's absolute nonsense, in my opinion.
I mean, let's face it. Over
the greatest emitter of carbon dioxide.
Over these other things, she's been emitting a lot of greenhouse gases.
The greatest emitter of carbon dioxide is the sea.
Okay, you mentioned
this. And as the sea warms, it emits more carbon dioxide.
But it also doesn't. The sea grasses and things actually consume carbon dioxide from the sea.
Yes, like all forests and woodlands and trees and plants and all the rest of it. But then when we start cutting down huge swathes of forestry and all the rest of it, that also doesn't help our situation.
So climate change, therefore, is man-made.
No, it's just one element of.
But therefore, it's partly man-made.
There are other stats that show that man-made climate change might account for only about 2.5% of the global output.
Right.
2.5%. Now, if you're trying to tell me that if those stats are accurate, even if they're inaccurate, even if it's only, let's call it 5-10%, of global output, even if that's the case, our maximum 10%, let's call it, would have minimal impact.
As in human race?
Yeah.
Or this country?
Yeah. Human race.
The human race is...
They say one stat equates to around 2.5%.
Who did that study? Who was it funded by?
God knows, by scientists. I'd have to have a look.
Oh, ask Liz Truss.
But it's like scientists that work for government panels, even scientists that work for government panels, are urged to deliver a set of results that sort of err on the side of what's required for global policy. If global policy is to reduce carbon, now the latest one is no longer carbon, it's nitrogen. So now we're supposed to massively reduce levels of nitrogen, which affects farming, because obviously farming creates a lot of nitrogen.
Yes, I've heard about this.
Right, with all of the farmers in Netherlands, who are some of the most advanced farmers on the planet. They produce food for I think 65% of Europe.
Right.
Foodstuffs are processed from Holland.
Right.
Between Holland and Spain, we get most of our food.
Okay.
Right. So if now you're trying to tell a farmer from the Netherlands to stop farming because it's bad for the environment, where do we get our food from exactly? So what happens there?
So
you know, the four elements, you know, that the universe is created from: oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide.
These are the building blocks of the universe.
Correct.
So now you're trying to tell me
nitrogen, the soil needs nitrogen.
But now you're trying to tell me that carbon and nitrogen are the things that are going to kill us.
Well, it's the balance of the gets a little bit out of balance. But if the science is accurate,
our air is 72% nitrogen.
Yes, I know.
So why would you reduce nitrogen?
4% oxygen,
something like that. So why would you want to reduce the nitrogen levels that are being emitted when that's what we breathe?
So are we running out of oxygen, maybe?
Are we running out of oxygen? We'll find out soon enough.
No.
Because we'll all be dead if that's the case.
But then you use CO2. Lots of things have CO2. We've talked about this before. Even your humble bag of crisps is full of CO2. Because otherwise there'll be a pretty mess at the bottom of the bag.
They can't manufacture CO2 fast enough to meet demand.
Right.
That's one thing.
But there's too much of it in the environment.
There's not too much of it in the environment, though, is there?
Right.
Because it's what the universe is made from.
Well, so, do you think then
if there was too much,
there must be wisdom in not cutting trees down and planting trees,
because it's part of the biome
and preserving things rather than dumping.
It's for oxygen production.
Yes. Okay. So it's a very different.
If plants consume carbon dioxide and emit oxygen, and us as part of the animal family, let's call it, you know, emit carbon dioxide, which then feeds plants, is part of a biome, it's part of a system.
Right, okay.
The same way the sea releases certain chemicals, and it actually sort of intakes other...
The way that vegans release a lot of methane.
But there's a natural balance. If you start to remove too much
of one,
much of one, you create an imbalance.
So really, then you see, we're looking down at it through the wrong end of the telescope. We should be not using fossil fuels because it's just
number one. It just doesn't make sense. It makes more sense to look.
We should be encouraging the planting of trees and not chopping them down, and perhaps compensating countries like Brazil for the gap that would create in their economy. And making sure that we don't pump sewage into the sea, dump plastics and all the rest of it.
Half of the south of England, you can't swim in the sea because apparently there's so much sewage in the water, in particular, that you shouldn't be swimming in the sea. And they've actually got
charming. It's that I've always noticed, it's the only time I can really get into a good stroke swimming. When I'm in the water, and that's when I'm swimming along, and all of a sudden I see a floating turd, and suddenly I turn into Mark Spitz in the other direction.
When have you ever?
Well, it happens when you're on. Sometimes when you're on holiday.
Again, what sort of weird places do you go to?
There's really weird places, mate.
Where poo floats past your head.
Mate, I went to India and we went on this trip to a place called Paradise Island. And I kid you not, The boat sort of was taking us around. We were going dolphin watching. I don't remember seeing this. I don't remember seeing a fucking dolphin throughout the whole time. So it was a bit pointless. Peering into the water to try and see something. There was nothing. But what I did see as we neared the jetty of Paradise Island is an arse facing into the sea. And really, dropping a bit of a mega turd. And if I'd have been swimming in that water 10 minutes later, it'd been like passed by a German U-boat. You know what I mean? So it does happen. Because the human beings are one of the few animals that found their own water supply.
Not in Saint-Tropez, they don't.
Not, eh?
Not in Saint-Tropez, they don't.
Not in Saint-Tropez, apparently. Yeah, they're fucking doing Torquay, let me tell you. And on that note, of course, I thought today, right, normally I finish with a quote of the day. So,
not with news to me, we don't.
Well, no, but I thought it might be a little bit of an anecdote.
No, we're not doing an anecdote.
So, well, I was going to say to you...
The whole point is that we keep it at 30 minutes.
Well, it is.
It's not.
Well,
it's 36 minutes, isn't it?
Well, of course, it was the preamble. And
Thank you, everybody.
Well, okay.
Bye.
Stop the anecdote.